Hey y'all, Grandma Rose here. I am going to make an attempt to put up the rest of this video. The kitty cat in my lap who is driving me crazy. I hope she doesn't drive you crazy too. But I was very unhappy with the quality of the video that I put up this morning on casting on using the long tail method. I did not like the shadows in it. And it irritated me, and I thought it probably would irritate you too. So I didn't continue editing the rest of the video showing how to knit and purl. Now, one of my friends here in town just called me and asked me if I was going to put that video up. And I told her, well, I wasn't happy with it. But yes, I will go ahead and put that up. So I will attach that to the end, right now. And if you can overlook the shadows, that's fine. And I do apologize for that. Now, there are a couple of other, well, not a couple. There are hundreds of people online on YouTube teaching you how to knit. I'm not the only person in the world who can teach you how to knit and purl. So if my shadows really irritate you, I'm not going to have my feelings hurt if you go to somebody else to learn, because it would irritate me if I had a video with that quality. And I do apologize. That was not intentional. I'm going to work on it. This is like the first or second time I've ever tried to do videoing from above. And it was at night. The light was not good. And that's just what happened. And I'm going to have to work on it. What else? I guess that's it. So I will put that up. One of my favorite websites, not websites, one of my favorite YouTube contributors, I cannot think what her name is, but the YouTube channel is called Very Pink Knits. Very Pink Knits. And that's probably not the name of it, but if you go on YouTube and search for Very Pink Knits, she does very, very professionally done videos, knitting videos. And I can guarantee you, if you go back to one of her earlier videos, she will show you how to knit and how to purl. And she will do it professionally, and you will learn. Now, I will go ahead and put this up. And I will do it slowly like I did before on the casting on. Very exaggerated movements and slow and over and over and over again. Trying to help you because I know it helps me a whole lot. And how many times do you watch a video and you can't quite catch what the person does, and you say, wait a second, what did she do? And so you stop and you back up and you play it over again and over again and over again until you finally get that right. And you're probably going to have to do that with me too. But at least I'm trying to do it slowly enough, because I've been knitting all my life. And I knit a lot faster than this, but I want to show you how I'm holding the needles, how I'm holding the thread, how I move the thread around with my fingers, and to teach you like you've never done it before. And I actually retaught myself to knit several years ago, because I had taught myself using a book, and nobody had sat down with me and showed me how to do it correctly. So I went back and I learned how to do it all over again, and now I knit better. We have a dog fight over here. The noise you hear is the Chihuahua growling at the big dog. He's the one who's the instigator. So anyway, I will attach the video on how to knit, how to purl, and I hope you do well, and I hope this works for you. And I'll see you next time. Bye, y'all. I'm going to show you how to knit and purl. Now, the first row is usually the hardest. You want to keep the yarn, the tail. I've got a long tail. Like I said, it's a long tail cast on. Well, I left a long tail here. But what we do, and I probably should do more than 10, but the beginning of the yarn is always on the right side. If it's on this side, then you need to turn it over, because the yarn always starts on the right side. Now to knit, The knit stitch and the purl stitch are very similar. It's really the same stitch. Actually, the purl stitch is the knit stitch backwards, but you don't want to wrap your head around that. But let me show you what you do. For the knit stitch, you put the tip of your needle through from the left side to the right side and to the back. And the thread needs to be behind the yarn like that, or behind the needle. So the left side to the right side to the back. Then you take your thread and you wrap your thread around the needle like that. That's all there is to it. If this were a crochet hook, it would have a hook on the end of it. But because it doesn't, you have to hold the needle a little snug to be able to pull the needle out without the yarn coming off. So I'm going to put some tension on the yarn, show you how I hold my yarn. When I pick up my yarn, before we do anything else, let me show you what I do. Hand down on the yarn, I put my little finger under it and wrap it around. See how it made a loop? Little finger, wrap it around. This way, you want your little finger, keep your fingers out. Little finger, wrap it around. And you want it underneath these two fingers and over that finger. You need to practice that. It's weird. But if you hold your fingers up when you're doing it, the fingers are going. If you hold them down, it's going to be over. Like that. Let's do it again. See that? Kind of magic the way it does. There we go. This is for you beginner knitters out there who have never knit before. It's if you've crocheted, you know when you crochet you do exactly the same thing except you do it with your left hand. Remember? So you're doing that with your left hand to crochet, right? It's exactly the same thing except you're doing it on your right hand. And there is a way to knit holding your yarn in your left hand. And if you want to learn to do that, I'm probably not the person to teach you to do that. I know how, but that's not the method that I use to knit. I'm a lot better at teaching someone to knit what is called English style. Where you knit holding the yarn in your left hand is called Continental Style. And it's not hard to do, and I do that if I'm doing fair isle knitting. I'll hold one color yarn in one hand and the other color yarn in the other hand, and I'll knit Continental if I'm using the yarn in my left hand, and English if I'm holding. It's confusing, but it works, and a lot of people do it that way. So let's do this again. Remember, you're getting the gauge, getting the tension on your yarn. So put your needle through here, pick up your yarn like that. Now, using your finger, you can hold it this way, but every time you hold it that way, you have to let go of the yarn and you have to readjust it, and it changes the tension and it messes you up, and and your stitches don't look right. They look right. I'm not saying, because a lot of people do knit that way. The method that I use, this is what I saw in the book when I learned to knit. And you knit and you hold your yarn with the tip of your finger, and then you use your finger and you kind of pivot off of your thumb and just twist it around underneath and back over. And then when you pull down, I put my finger at the tip of the needle so it doesn't fall off. The yarn's not coming off because my finger's there. See that? You come here and you just bring out on that yarn and your loop is on there. Now these stitches need to be way up at the tip. Otherwise it's going to stretch way out like that. Which is kind of, your first time knitter, that's probably the way you're going to do it. Take anything you learn that's new takes practice. It's going to be hard at first. It's going to feel strange. It's going to feel weird. But it's muscle memory. You know, anytime, it's like learning how to ride a bike. The first time, how many times did you try to ride a bike before you finally got it right? So we're going to pull a little bit on this. You don't want to jam it tight. If you pull it really tight, it's going to be really hard to knit the next row. It's better to have it too loose than too tight. So again, we've got this stitch on this needle now. Do it again. put that through that loop from the left side to the right side, front to back. The yarn is held in the back, and we're going to put the yarn over the needle, back between the two needles. See that? So over the needle on the bottom, and make an X, like that. The needle tips make an X. Bring it over the bottom one, hold it down between the X, put your other finger here on the tip, and push up, and there's that stitch right there. See it? Now the stitch is right there, and you haven't taken this one off yet. All you do is just slide it over, like that. Now 2 stitches are over here. The thread is still, the yarn is still over my finger. See that? From the left to the right, front to back, and it's going to make an X. The needle tips are going to make an X. You come under that needle, back through where the tips cross, and then you put your left finger, index finger, on the tip of the needle, and push and bend up that tip, and that thread can't go anywhere because this finger's here, this finger's holding, there is that loop that you just made, and pull it off. Let's do it again. From the left to the right, front to back. You make an X with your needle tips. That, take your finger and wrap the yarn around between the 2 tips. Put this index finger on the tip of that needle, put up and off. Let's do it again. I'm not going to tell you how to do it this time, just watch. I've knit all 10 stitches. And you notice we knit that side. And when we did it, look at the bumps on here. Those are those purl bumps that I told you about. From the other row, got the same thing here. See that? That's the back side. If you look on this side, if you pull down on it, do you see the knit stitches? Can you see them? You see the little V's? Put this needle down. But pull down on it, you can see that row of stitches you just made. And they look like V's all along the bottom. See that? That's the knit side. The back side has these bumps on it. That's the purl side. Now, this is the tail. You want to knit with the side. I should cut that off, but I'm going to use this later for something else, so I'm not cutting it off. This is the side that's attached to your ball of yarn right here. So this is on your right side as you knit. Now I'm going to teach you how to purl. You've knit now. I'm going to teach you the purl stitch this time, and don't be scared of the purl stitch, because it's not hard. People try to tell you that it's hard, but it's not. It's a different stitch. It's not the knit stitch. It's just a different stitch. There's nothing wrong with it. But on the knit stitch, remember what we did. On the knit stitch, you went from the left side to the right side, and from the front to the back, and you held your yarn in the back. Remember that? Okay, I just showed you that a minute ago, so you should remember that. On the purl side instead, you bring your yarn to the front, and instead of going from the left to the right, you go from the right to the left, from the front. Where the knit stitch, you went here and you went behind and crossed underneath that needle. What you're going to do on the purl side is from the right, and you're going to cross over that needle. It's basically the opposite. The knit was left to right and underneath, and the purl is right to left and over. If you flipped that over, you looked in the mirror when you were doing it, it would look like you were knitting. But it's not any harder, it's just different. So instead, do this, remember that. Take my needle, put my needle in first. You know, when you do something all the time and it happens automatically, how many times do you really analyze exactly what you're doing? Which I'm having to think, okay, now how do I do that? So what I'm doing is I go ahead and put the needle in there, and it's just resting like that. See that? Not going anywhere. Grab the yarn, get it on my finger. Now, it's the same motion that you did before. When you're knitting, remember you came underneath the needle and then over between the needles? Well, on the purl side instead, you're going to go through the needles first, but you're still going to go underneath it, just like that. Now the loop is on this side, so instead of putting your finger on that, it doesn't make sense to put your finger on it. Your thumb's easier. Hold this down, put your thumb, and you push it out back to the back. And there's the loop that's on your needle right there. You see it? Okay, we're going to take this off. Now again, from the right to the left, through between the stitches and over it. And then you're going to push it to the back. And there's the stitch. From the right to the left on the top. The yarn is in the front. Bring it over. First of all, between the stitches and over the needle. I mean, it looks like it's under, right? I guess that's over. But anyway, you bring it around the needle from the right to the left. And then you push that off. Bring it from the right to the left, around the needle. Put your thumb on the tip and push it backwards. Right to left, wrap it around, thumb on the needle, and push it backwards. Thumb, push it backwards. Right to left, underneath, thumb, and push it backwards. I'll show you what you've done in a minute. And to the end, there's the 10 stitches. And here, the yarn right now is on the left side of the yarn, on the left side of the needle. So what does that mean? So this working yarn, the yarn that's, well, both of them actually, the yarn is attached to the ball. It's on the left side of the needle, so what does that mean? That means you need to turn the needle over because it's got to be at the right side. Now look what we have here. You just finished this purl row here. What do we have on that side? Look at that. There's knit stitches on this side. So like I said before, the purl is actually the back side of the knit. Knit is the back side of the purl. It's really the same stitch, you're just doing it backwards, like doing it in a mirror. And you continue doing that, and you're going to have, it's called a stockinette stitch. The stockinette stitch is a series of 2 different stitches. Knit stitches on one side of the fabric, turn the fabric over, purl stitches on the other side of the fabric. And it creates the smooth fabric that we're accustomed to seeing on sweaters and other things like that.